What if two of history's most enigmatic relics are not just connected, but are pieces of the same puzzle, telling a story that defies our understanding of time and science? Today, we're diving deep into a forensic investigation that bridges centuries, linking the Sudarium of Oviedo and the Shroud of Turin in a way that could rewrite their history. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin, with its haunting image of a crucified man, has captivated believers and skeptics alike. It's a linen cloth, about 14 feet long, bearing the faint, sepia-toned imprint of a man's body, front and back. The image is remarkably detailed, showing wounds consistent with crucifixion, including marks from a crown of thorns, scourging, and a piercing in the side. The story goes that this is the burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth. Then, there's the Sudarium of Oviedo, a smaller, less famous piece of cloth preserved in Spain. This linen square, roughly the size of a large napkin, is covered in blood and fluid stains. Tradition holds that it was the face cloth used to cover Jesus' head after his death on the cross, before he was placed in the tomb and wrapped in the larger shroud. Unlike the shroud, it doesn't have an image, just a complex pattern of stains. For a long time, these two relics were studied in isolation. The Shroud of Turin famously underwent carbon-14 dating in 1988, which placed its origins in the Middle Ages, between 1260 and 1390. This result seemed to debunk its claim as a first-century artifact, and many considered the case closed. But what if the science wasn't telling the whole story? What if another piece of evidence was waiting in plain sight? This is where our investigation begins. Scientists started looking at the Sudarium of Oviedo with fresh eyes. They found something astonishing. The blood on the Sudarium is type AB positive, a rare blood type. Incredibly, the blood on the Shroud of Turin is also type AB positive. A coincidence? Maybe, but the connections don't stop there. The pollen grains found trapped in the fibers of both claws trace back to plant species native to the Jerusalem area. This suggests both cloths were, at some point in their history, in the same geographical region. But the most compelling evidence comes from a field you might not expect: forensic geometry. Imagine you're a detective at a crime scene. You analyze blood spatter patterns to reconstruct the events that took place. A team of Spanish investigators decided to apply this same methodology to the Sudarium and the Shroud. They weren't just looking at the blood type. They were looking at the shape, size, and position of the stains themselves. The Sudarium is believed to have been placed over the face of the deceased in several stages. First, while the body was still upright, and later, after it was laid down. This movement created a complex, multi-layered pattern of blood and pulmonary edema fluid, a liquid that would have filled the lungs of someone who died from crucifixion. The scientists meticulously mapped these stains on the Sudarium. They identified key points: stains from the nose, the mouth, the beard, and even the thorns on the forehead. Now for the mind-blowing part. They took this digital map of stains from the Sudarium and tried to overlay it onto the face on the Shroud of Turin. It was like trying to fit a key into a lock. And it fit perfectly. They found over 70 points of congruence between the blood stains on the Sudarium and the wounds on the face of the man in the shroud. The pattern of blood from the nose on the Sudarium perfectly matched the blood flow on the Shroud's face. The punctures from a crown of thorns on the Shroud's forehead aligned precisely with corresponding blood stains on the Sudarium. Even the length of the nose, calculated from the stains on the Sudarium, was identical to the length of the nose on the Shroud's image. Let's pause and think about what this means. We have two separate cloths, with histories spanning centuries and continents. One is a burial shroud with a full-body image. The other is a face cloth covered in stains. Yet, when you geometrically align them, the bloodstains on one correspond exactly to the wounds depicted on the other. The patterns are so complex and specific that the probability of this happening by chance is infinitesimally small. It's like finding two separate puzzle pieces from different boxes that fit together to form a single, coherent picture. This synchronized trauma pattern strongly suggests that both claws covered the same face at around the same time, documenting the same sequence of events. The Sudarium captured the immediate aftermath of death, while the Shroud captured the state of the body in the tomb. They are two chapters of the same gruesome story. This brings us back to that controversial carbon-14 date for the Shroud. If the Sudarium and the Shroud are inextricably linked to the same event, then the history of one must align with the history of the other. And the Sudarium has a documented history that goes back much further than the Middle Ages. Historical records trace its presence in Spain to the 7th century, long before the Shroud's carbon dating period. It arrived in Spain after fleeing Jerusalem in 614 AD ahead of a Persian invasion. This historical paper trail directly contradicts the medieval dating of the Shroud. So how do we reconcile this? Did the carbon dating get it wrong? Many scientists now argue that it might have. The sample taken for the 1988 test was from a corner of the Shroud that was likely repaired in the Middle Ages. Nuns in the 16th century are known to have rewoven damaged sections after a fire. If the sample contained a mix of original 1st century linen and medieval repair threads, it would naturally produce an average date falling somewhere in the Middle Ages. This theory, known as the invisible patch or rewoven area hypothesis, has gained significant traction, supported by subsequent chemical and microscopic analysis. What we're looking at is a classic case of forensic evidence, challenging a single scientific test. The overwhelming geometric and historical correspondence between the Sudarium and the Shroud presents a powerful argument for their shared ancient origin. It suggests a single point in time when one man is suffering was imprinted onto two separate cloths. The Sudarium, with its jagged AB-positive bloodstains, acts as a forensic key, unlocking the secrets of the Shroud's ghostly visage. This alignment doesn't just challenge the carbon dating, it forces us to reconsider the entire narrative. We are no longer looking at a potential medieval forgery. Instead, we're faced with a complex forensic puzzle that points towards a single, traumatic event in the 1st century. The combined evidence from blood type, pollen analysis, historical records, and most importantly, the precise geometric matching of the wound patterns, builds a case that is difficult to dismiss. The story these two relics tell together is far more detailed and compelling than the story they tell apart. They act as silent witnesses, their linen fibers holding a record of trauma that has survived 2,000 years. The Sudarium provides the stark raw data of the wounds, and the Shroud provides the haunting, holistic image of the man who bore them. This investigation highlights the power of interdisciplinary science. By combining history, botany, forensic medicine, and geometry, researchers have uncovered a hidden synchronicity that was missed for centuries. It's a reminder that sometimes the truth isn't found in a single test or a single artifact, but in the connections between them. The conversation around the Shroud of Turin is no longer just about one cloth and one carbon date. It's now about two cloths, two histories, and one inescapable conclusion. They are linked. The question that remains is not if they are connected, but how their shared story will continue to challenge what we think we know. What do you think? Does the evidence from the Sudarium of Oviedo change your perspective on the Shroud of Turin? It's a fascinating intersection of faith, science, and history, where ancient linen cloths continue to pose some of our most profound questions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. If you enjoy exploring historical mysteries and forensic puzzles, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We'll see you in the next investigation.